right, SportsUncapped here on a Monday. Hope everyone had a good weekend. I have plenty that we have to get to here tonight on the program. Stephen A. Norman, Emrod Mitchell, Rodriguez. OTAs are underway for the New England Patriots. Schedule released last week. We didn't get to that, so we are going to work our way through the Patriots schedule and some of the questions that now that we have the schedule and know the opponents, know the dates, more importantly, and when they take place in the season. I want to discuss some of the takeaways from the schedule. Celtics coming off of last week, advancing. We now know it is Indiana. We now know it is tomorrow night. We'll talk a little bit about the Celtics. I want to go back over a comment that Draymond Green made on the TNT broadcast the other night after the Celtics advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals, pick our way through that. And, of course, on the heels of a Game 7 loss, Game 6 loss at home for the Boston Bruins. We're going to have a reaction to that series as well. So, fully loaded program here on a Monday. Tonight's show brought to you by Mill City Environmental. Get peace of mind with a clean and safe environment. Whatever the size of the project, Mill City Environmental is your local go-to environmental cleanup company. Job is too big or too small, they can handle it all. Find them online at millcityenv.com for a full list of their services. Don't be a chump. Call the experts before you dump. And the Massachusetts Pirates of the Indoor Football League, who is underway now. Mitchell went the other night, right, Mitch?
Yep, I went to go see them play against the North Arizona Wranglers. And unfortunately, they did not get a win. The final score was 41-40. They had 35 seconds left on the last drive to go ahead after a nice defensive stop to win the game. Unfortunately, threw an interception.
Tough. It's tough. Breaks happen.
Mm-hmm.
Tough plays happen through the course of the season. But the Massachusetts Pirates are officially underway. Another home game coming up this week, playing all their games on the Saugus Arena. You can hear all the games home and away exclusively right here on 980 WCAP. Visit Mass Pirates Football for more information, such as schedule, roster, latest news, and to buy your tickets. And it is a good product. Mitchell, I know, has gone a couple of times here. I have not yet made it to a game, but I will be. That is for sure. So, Mitchell, we'll start with the schedule, shall we? We'll start with the Patriots schedule, which was released last Wednesday. We now know the opponents, Mitchell. We now know the times, at least for 15 of those games. Final two are still up in the air as far as what time they're going to be played. As you know, mostly the end of the season, the NFL waits to release the times of those final matchups. I'll tell you this, Mitchell, my first takeaway as I looked at the schedule, we knew the opponents, right? So we knew who the Patriots were going to be playing, but the timing of these matchups, now that we know when in the schedule they have different opponents, you now kind of have an idea of, when we could see Drake May, what this team's record could look like, the fact that they're not favored in one single game this year. So my first takeaway as I broke into it is you got an extremely tough schedule for a last place team. I mean, I don't think this team got any breaks with the layout of the schedule. 7 games out of the 17 are against playoff teams from last year. They have the 10th toughest schedule based on last year's winning percentages of their opponents. You look at the quarterbacks they play. You look at the offenses that they play. You look at just the opponents themselves, and you really break down the team as a whole. The Patriots have a brutal start to the schedule, in my opinion. And I think this is going to be a tough year, Mitchell. I mean, we haven't predicted many wins. Vegas has them at 4.5 for an over-under. So they're telling you right there kind of what they're thinking about the Patriots. 3 of the first 4 games are on the road, quality quarterbacks, or offensive systems. Cincinnati, the Jets. You have Seattle at home. That's going to be your home opener in week 2. San Francisco, Miami. I mean, go on down the list. They fly a lot here, and they have a late bye. Mitchell, the schedule makers did the Patriots no favor with the layout of the schedule.
Yeah, no, I think the way that the schedule is, just looking at the competition, looking at the way that it lays out, it's a tough and it's a brutal schedule. You look at when they have their bye week. Their bye week is extremely late. You look at again just some of the competition that they face early on, and it's not easy competition. It's tough competition, and for a guy like Gerard Mayo, who he's going into his first year as a coach, a lot of adversity, a lot of adversity early on, a lot of stuff that it's really going to test this team early and often. It really is going to test this team early and often. But I think that this could be a good thing for Mayo. I mean, if they can go ahead and keep their head above water or win a couple of games that maybe they're not supposed to win, or if they can even finish with a record that's better than last year, I think you can win some of the fan base over, and I think you can win over that locker room as well.
So I don't think the locker room right now is an issue. So that right now, all the vibes are good. The players are talking about how different it is, how everyone's more open, how people can be themselves more. That's the vibes. And Gerard Mayo has made that very clear that, he is doing business and operating and working with people in a way that Bill Belichick just would never do. Old school coach compared to a new first-time head coach who was also a former player himself. I look at the schedule, though, and I say, I don't really know where they get these wins. My take on week one is, at least with Cincinnati, you're on the road. But Cincinnati's been a team that struggled at home. They struggled early in the season, whether it be at home or away in the Joe Burrow tenor. They've had, starts to their seasons like what the Patriots did, which, when they were winning, which was slower starts, and really don't get into a groove until later on in the year. Burrow coming back from an injury. I think that the offense will be better to start the season than we've seen in the past because I just know Joe Burrow and the work that he's putting in and that he's been rehabbing. And if he's up to, to full strength, then maybe we get a little bit different of a start. But I think you look at the schedule and I think get ready for another possible top 5 pick. Because, Mitchell, I look at this, and I don't really think it made a difference too much what the schedule was, because I don't think that, it's easy by any means when you look at opponents, when you look at travel, all the travel they're doing, when you look at how late that bye is, and all those factor in. But I also look at this and I say, this has been a long-term rebuild. And by long-term, I mean longer term, 2 to 3 years. So this year is about figuring things out. It's about figuring out your young talent. It's about working in a new system. It's about having momentum going into next season and, seeing how the draft pans out this year. Do you get contributions? What does the system look like? How does the offense get up and running? What type of team is this? What is the locker room? Now, obviously, the coaching staff is huge in this, and Drake May is an obvious one. But the coaching staff, 17 new coaches this year. Mitchell, I think it's going to be a long season for him. I think it's going to be a long season. And I will be interested to see the attitude of this team, to see how, Mayo is on game days, to see what the team performs like, but also really to see, are things coming together in the right way? Is it starting to make a turn to last year was horrible with 4 wins, and there wasn't much to feel good about, if anything, come the end of the season. And obviously then Bill's fired and Max traded and, Patriots have a number 3 pick and all the speculation about what they're doing. Now is the time that I look at this team and I say, I don't have high expectations for them. I'm not circling the schedule like I was in the past saying, oh, I see this here, I see that, there. Oh, okay, this is, maybe we could see an 8-9 season, or a 7, in 10 season, whatever it is, I think this team it's going to rely on its defense early. I mean, this defense is going to have to carry this team. Gonzalez will be back. Judon is going to be huge in this, if he's here, Mitchell. So this is another interesting thing, and this isn't really schedule related, but Matthew Judon, who's working his way back from the injury, who does not have a long-term contract in place, who is 32 years old, coming off an injury, who has had issues finishing seasons and staying healthy, who got the pay raise last year, basically taking money from this year's deal, giving it to Judon last year to make him happy, get him in the building. I don't know how, like, is he a part of this team? I think that's something you can monitor. You know, I think that's something that we're going to have to keep our eyes on. We know how guys have these hold-ins where they're there, but they're not taking part in drills, and it's basically, yeah, okay, I'm going to show up, but I'm not going to do anything. But I think to go back to the overall point, Mitchell, I look at this defense and I say, Joe Burrow. I mean, you look at these quarterbacks that they play, right? Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Tua twice, and Tua being, you know, average, but that Miami offense being high octane. Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Caleb Williams, Geno Smith, Will Levis. There are a lot of good quarterbacks on that list, and with that bye being so late, I think it's going to be on the defense. And it's all good vibes right now. But my concern is still this. What is this coaching staff? What is it? Oh, we're past the draft. We're past free agency. They took care of a lot of their own guys, which helps, you know, in the locker room, and it helps kind of change the feels around the team and how players are viewed and the connection that they have with coaches. Okay, that's a plus. That's a positive. They didn't do much in free agency. I thought their draft was pretty solid. Okay. Overall, positions in need. Now, the players, this is why we talked about it when they had it. I don't do the grading thing because it's like, you know, we're looking at positions in need. So, yeah, did they check those off the list in some shape and form? Yeah, they went heavy offense, right? And that's exactly what we thought they would do. But they actually went out there and drafted offensive players, wide receivers, quarterback, offensive line. But if you look at that draft, too, you could say it like this. Okay, Jalen Polk, good player, nice player. That was not the Patriots' pick at wide receiver. So it was kind of like we're going to take the guy who's there for us because the guys that we wanted were already off the board. Not aggressive enough in being able to get back up into that first round. Late into that first round, you saw Keon Coleman go. You saw Xavier Leggett go. Those are two guys I think the Patriots were both looking at. They trade out as soon as Buffalo drafts Keon Coleman. Javon Baker is a fourth-round guy. The offensive talent there, offensive tackle there, what is it, Caden Wallace, is more of a guard, some people think, or a tackle. He's already getting starter reps at left tackle, third-round pick. Should they have gone tackle before wide receiver? Mitchell, as you look at the breakdown of the schedule for you, where do you look at the winnable games? You know, I know predicting wins and losses, especially before, you know, training camp, and we have months to go before we actually get to any meaningful games. But what do you think this Patriots, where do you think they can carve out wins?
Yeah, so I looked at the schedule and I saw some of the teams that they're facing, and you know, a couple of the games I saw the Colts. I think they can win that one. The Seahawks, I think they can win that one. I think they're going to split with Miami this year. Honestly, I think this is the year that they're finally going to get a win against Tua, turn the ball over. I think this is going to be the first year, and I think they're also going to split with the Jets. I look at some of these other teams too. I look at the Bears. I think that's another winnable game. The Titans, I think that's another winnable game. The Cardinals, I think that's another winnable game. You know, and honestly, the Bengals start out really slow. They are one of the worst teams within the first 4 weeks of the season. Joe Burrow doesn't really get it going until after the first 4 weeks. So that might be another winnable game for them as well. But not because I look at the Bengals and I think, oh my God, the Patriots are such a superior team. Jacoby Brissett is just going to mop the floor with with Joe Burrow in that deep. No, I don't look, not because of that. It's just because of, you just look at, since every year that Joe Burrow has started in the NFL, the first 4 weeks, he started incredibly slow. That's just the what the stats show to me. So I think they could beat the Bengals. I think they can beat the Seahawks. Again, I think they split with the Jets this year. I think they split with the Dolphins. The Jaguars, that's another team there. I look at them and maybe, they're a weird team. They have weeks that they look great. They look like they're a competent team. And then they have weeks that they play down to their competition. They're like the Celtics of the NFL. And then you got the Titans and the Bears. Again, those are winnable. Colts, Cardinals, I think those are winnable as well. And then you got the Chargers. That's going to be a weird team. I think the first year with Harbaugh, we saw what he did his last stint in the NFL. He took the 49ers and he immediately brought them to the NFC Championship game. So
the tough part with that one is that's the Week 17 game.
Yeah.
It is a home game for the Chargers. So on the plus side, the Chargers are a dome team. They're now transitioning to a new, head coach in Harbaugh. They've really traded away all the wide receivers for Herbert, but I think they've surrounded him with better offensive tackle. They got Joe Alt there early on in that draft. You get them at the later part of the schedule. That's where I look at this. I say Week 14 bye. They're not favored in any of these games, which is basically Vegas saying, we don't see them winning these games, but obviously that, there will be wins on the schedule. I think Cincinnati is probably the gift from the NFL because of the things that you just stated and we've talked about here is the slow start for that team and knowing that they're going to be there at the end. You get that one at Cincinnati. If that was a home game, maybe you feel a little bit better about it too. They're not favored in one game this year. Them and the Panthers are the only two teams in the NFL to be underdogs in 17 out of 17 games. I don't know that there's any more wins than there are from last year on the schedule. I really don't. So I'm not as optimistic about the division games. Miami, the Jets, the Bills. I'm not as optimistic about those games. I think that you're going to get a division win. One. I think two would be like, oh my God. Because Mitchell, I see the games on the schedule that I think they could win, and I just look at the teams. I say, yeah, Tennessee is a team. Like Jacksonville's a team, but they're on the road at Tennessee. Yep. You get them in Week 9. They have a new head coach there in Tennessee too. So have they worked their kinks out? He's an offensive guy. What is he like? The same thing as you're dealing with here, except they brought in an offensive coach and you went defense again. Jacksonville. That one is in London. That's a 9:30 a.m. game. Jacksonville is also playing back-to-back weeks in London. Therefore, their schedule is they're going to be more adjusted by the time they get the Patriots because that's going to be their second week of being in London, whereas the Patriots are coming from Houston back home to travel to London. So all the factors of, where these games take place. Chicago, that should be a winnable game in my opinion. The Indianapolis Colts should be a winnable game. You get the bye week. Then you get Arizona. So, okay, yeah, Arizona is one of those teams. I guess I would probably say Week 15 there because I think that, it's in Arizona, but it's after your bye week, which means you get a week to finally rest guys, evaluate, which is another thing for this team that the bye being so late in the season does them no favors because they have 13 games before they hit their bye, and that bye week is typically when coaches can look at their team and start to adjust some things and tweak some things, and then obviously the Drake May factor, which we'll get to here after the break. Mitchell, just off the top here, and I realize so early and going to be making predictions. How many wins do you have them legitimately for? What is your expectation?
I say 7. I say 7. I think 7. Mm-hmm.
You have 7 wins?
That's my max. 6 to 7.
Did you have too much happy cake this weekend celebrating the birthday?
No, hey, remember last year? I was spot on, baby.
Yeah, no, you were right.
I was spot on. I'm standing on business. The max is 7. They're winning 6, baby.
Yeah, I don't see that. I don't. I don't.
I think
I would take the under. I would take 4 if I was betting it.
Okay, I think they're gonna. I I think it's a new year. It's a new coaching system. I think the offense is going to be better than last year, which is not really saying much. There was games that, Steven, they had as many touchdowns as we did last year, which was 0. That's what that offense did last year. So I think this is going to be a new team, a new year. I think the offense, again, is going to be better. That's not a huge flex, though. And I just look at some of these teams, and again, I think the Bengals, like you said, and like we've just talked about, I think that's a gift. I think you can get that win early. The Seahawks, new coaching staff, they traded for Sam Howell. You don't trade for a guy like Sam Howell, who's a starting caliber guy, unless if you have plans to make him your future guy. Geno Smith is up there in age. He's been in the league for a while. Sam Howell showed that he can gun it. And he's not afraid to do so. And I look at those two games early on, but I mean, yeah, I get it. You're playing against the Jets. You're playing against the Niners, then the Dolphins and the Texans. Those are all really well-established teams. You're probably going to get your butt kicked. I know what you're saying about Jacksonville, but still it's Jacksonville. It wouldn't surprise me if Jacksonville, the first game that they're out there in London, they kill that team, and then they go ahead and they get killed by the Patriots. That's just the Jacksonville way. It's just the way that the league intends it to be. The Jacksonville Jaguars are just so up and down. The Titans and the Bears. The Titans, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little biased with Will Levis because he puts mayo in his coffee, and I still can't overlook that fact. But I don't look at that team and think that they have their stuff together. And then I look at the Bears with Caleb Williams, and he's another guy too. I don't know what you're really going to get out of him. I'm not sure about him. I have to see him on the field. I think he's soft. I think there's times where he goes ahead and he's just soft. I'll leave it at that. And then the Colts, Anthony Richardson didn't get enough time to play last year. This is really going to be like his rookie year. The Cardinals with Kyler Murray. I'm not a Kyler Murray fan. I know you're not a Kyler Murray fan, Steven. I don't even think Kyler Murray is a Kyler Murray fan. So I look at that team, and it's the Cardinals. So, I mean, I just gave you that right there. The Cardinals, Colts, that's 2 right there. The Bears, Titans, that's 2, that's 6. The Jaguars, I'll take it, that's 5. And then the Seahawks and the Bengals, that's 6 right there. And then I also said you're going to split with the Dolphins and you're going to split with the Jets. That's what I think. So, I mean, right there, if we're going based off of everything best case scenario, that's actually like 9 wins. I'm taking 2 off because, they're probably not going to go ahead and beat all those teams, So, again, I'm going with 6, high 7.
Yeah, I just look at the schedule and I say there are no breaks here. I think this is going to be all about learning what your team is moving forward, learning about your coaching staff, seeing how Alex Van Pelt, Ben McAdoo, T.C. McCartney works with Drake May, gets him ready, gets the offense, now running a whole new system. And I think that this is going to take time. This is why I say defense early on in the schedule specifically, because I look at the offense and now, unlike bringing back, Bill O'Brien to take over for Josh McDaniels, 2 guys that ran very similar systems, you have absolute, complete new offense, new calls, new verbiage. There's going to be a learning curve there. We still don't know what Alex Van Pelt is as a coordinator who makes calls, actually calls plays. And I think this is going to be more about figuring out what your team is. I'll tell you, you look at it and the things that stick out are late bye, lots of travel, no primetime games, which is something, or one primetime game, I should say, which is, a big change from what this team has been in the past. Let's talk about that for a second. So the Patriots have one primetime game this year. It's their Week 3 Thursday night game against the Jets. They have no features on Sunday Night Football, on Monday Night Football. Now, games could get flexed. I don't see the Patriots getting any of them. The only team that has less primetime games than you is the Panthers, who have absolutely none. None. And teams are not required to play a Thursday night game anymore, if you even want to call that primetime. I know it is. It's a national broadcast. It's Amazon. I don't look at Thursday night in the same way that I look at Sunday and Monday night and what that means. This should be like a big smack in the face to the crafts, because the NFL is telling you that no one cares about your past. And as much as, you're riding the high of this winning, and talking about it like it represented, also your brand, and that you were, the next team by the Cowboys. You're not the Cowboys is what they're telling you. The Cowboys have primetime games every single year, regardless of how good they are. The Patriots don't have that brand loyalty. Mm-hmm. And that should be a slap in the face. You are now considered one of the bottom 5 teams in the league. You just don't move the needle. Your rookie quarterback, who you just took third, does not move the needle. Your head coach does not inspire confidence. It does not move the needle. So I personally love 1 p.m. games, okay? I like being in that 1 p.m. game because it gives you an opportunity to get up, do your things in the morning, watch the game, watch the post game. You know me, I'm like a grandfather when it comes to this stuff. I don't like the primetime games. I don't like Sunday night football when I have to stay up to watch Sunday night football. Not that I don't love football, but the games are so damn late. And then by the time we do everything that we do, it's like, it's 11:30, 12:30. I don't care for them. I don't. I love having these 1 p.m. games. I think, the late games they're too late. I think 1 p.m. could be better for the fans. So that's that. But to go back to the point that I'm making about what the NFL has now seen from you in 4 years, and now what they're seeing you do in your off season and moving forward, you haven't been good for a while here. Okay. The last year, 4 primetime games. 2022, they had 4 primetime games, including 3 in a row at one point. In 2021, coming off of a 7-9 season, they still had 3 primetime games. So I think it should just be, a big eye-opening thing for the Krafts, for Jonathan Kraft, who's, going to be taking this team over sooner rather than later. 978-454-4980, the Milltown Electrical Service text line. When we come back, I want to discuss Drake May. When could he start as we look at the schedule? What would be soft landing spots, good spots for Drake May to make his first NFL start and then take the reins over from Jacoby Brissett? Is it possible he's a day 1 starter? Is it possible that he starts week 1? Some people think so. We'll discuss that. Also, the Celtics stuff coming out of the weekend. Pacers, interesting stuff out of that Western Conference series with the Nuggets and the Timberwolves, which was pretty crazy, Mitchell. That series was great. I think that could be better than the NBA Finals this season. That series right there might have been one of the more entertaining matchups than we'll even get in the finals. And Bruins thoughts. Another loss, another big game, another home game, another opportunity to change the perspective of what this core is, what this team is, and another L, end of the season, eliminated from the playoffs. So we'll get to all of that here after a short commercial break. We'll be right back with more Sports Uncapped.
Indianapolis Colts at the New England Patriots. Do you think Tony Richardson has a day against the Patriots? I don't. I think the Patriots are going to win this game.
I'm not sure he's playing in this game. You know who might be playing in this game? Drake May. This is the first game on the schedule for me, Tom, where I've given Drake May a better than 50% chance of starting this game. And here's why. They're at home. They're against a team that's not great. They're coming off of 3 teams that are pretty good. So in my scenario, way too early prediction, they've just lost 3 in a row. And now it's late enough in the season with the bye just on the other side of this Colts game where you could look at it and say, number 1, we're out of contention. We can all acknowledge that. We weren't planning on being in contention. Now we're pretty much officially out. Number 2, Jacoby, we love you. You've just been beaten up 3 games in a row. You've dropped 3 consecutively. We're trying to get asses in seats here.
Your shoulder hurts.
It probably does. They probably don't even need to tell him that. But you're also, again, I think having the bye, having a game after all this prep, 12 weeks of prep, then having the bye to digest what just happened. And okay, this is what the Cardinals are going to try to do to you when we're on the road against a halfway decent and improving team. I think that would be a nice way to get his career off the ground. Then you're playing Arizona, which is a beatable team. And then you've got 3 games down the stretch, which are not going to be easy, but they're legitimate tests. And if the offensive line, you feel like you can protect him, I don't hate the idea of starting him against Indy at home with that bye right there so he can just sort of decompress, absorb everything he needs to absorb. I think that's sort of a healthy way to start a professional career for a quarterback.
So that was Phil Perry and Tom Curran discussing the possible first start for Drake May in the NFL as the Patriots starting quarterback. 978-454-4980, the Milltown Electrical Service text line. Tonight's program brought to you by Mill City Environmental. Find them online and a full list of their services at millcityenv.com for a full list of all their services. And also, the Massachusetts Pirates bringing in tonight's program. Find them online at masspiratesfootball.com for more information. And another home game this coming week. Go support the Pirates. Good product. An enjoyable time, very reasonable ticket prices, and in our own backyard. Mitchell, let's get to Drake May, shall we? Because that's obviously, when the schedule came out, the other side of everything that we just talked about was, when do we get to see Drake May? When do you think, as you looked at the schedule, that you circle as possible premier days for Drake May? I have a few myself, and I think one of them is what Phil Perry just said there. Where are you thinking would be a good week to get Drake May his first start? Good landing spot for him.
Preseason. I don't start him that all this year. I keep him on the bench. I let him learn. I'm with Jacoby Brissett the whole way. I don't care how terrible Jacoby Brissett plays. You let him play. Drake May, you're riding the bench. I'm sticking by that. Unless if there's an injury, that's another story. But for the whole season, if Jacoby Brissett is healthy, if he could play, he will play. That is my stance on that. Again, injuries, that's another story.
If you had to pick a date, though, because I think that there's no chance that he doesn't play in a few games this year. I just don't see there being any chance of that. And I think that there are several reasons that you could say that. I think one is something that, guys have sat for entire seasons and been fine. Typically, those are better teams. Typically, those are not guys that were taken with a top 5 pick, and in this case, the top 3 pick. These are not guys that have the high-end traits like a Drake May that, sit out for an entire season. And I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure to play him. I would hold off on the outside pressure just to, try to pump up fans and bring a little bit of excitement. And I think the Patriots have been pretty good about kind of downplaying Drake May and talking about, this is going to be a process. He has a lot to work on. Gerard Mayo has said that, even recently. The biggest thing that I've heard, being taken away from the rookie mini camps and now the, OTAs, the optional OTAs here, is that, he's putting in the work. He's not a guy that is looking to get there and then leave. He's staying in the building. He's watching film. But I don't think that there's any chance that Drake May doesn't play this year for a couple of reasons. One, I think that there's going to be angst around the building and within the building, especially with Jonathan Kraft having more of a say now, it feels like, and having, more of a hands-on the football operations. And that's not even to say that I think he's meddling or anything like that, but no Bill Belichick, and now all of a sudden the Krafts have their team back, and I don't believe for a second that you're not going to hear, we want the kid to start, behind closed doors. It's not going to be a directive, okay? It's not going to be a directive. But once again, appeasing your bosses who need to see this team turn around and have something to build off of. But I also think that, learning on the job is another way to do it. For me, it should be based on when the kid's ready to play. Mm-hmm. And the team is settled in, and you have an idea of what that offensive line looks like, how the offense wants to operate, how the new pieces fit in, and they're settled in. Because right now, there's a lot of positives you can take away from Drake May. A lot of high-end physical traits. I think he's coachable. But right now, he's been, erratic under pressure. He has, issues with his mechanics, his footwork. This is stuff you can work out. But, where is he at with that? What is his command of the offense and the protection packages? Is he comfortable with NFL defenses? He's not playing in the ACC anymore. where it's not exactly, a brutal
competition.
schedule to begin. Yeah, it's not. So I think he's raw. I don't think he's a day one guy. I think you look at this as a long-term thing. You're trying to build a program. You're trying to get guys comfortable. You're also learning on the job if you're Gerard Mayo and Alex Van Pelt and the rest of the whole staff. So, yeah, take it like that. And I don't see him winning the job week one. I don't think it's out of the question, though. I mean, I don't see it happening, okay? I don't see it happening. I don't see him starting at least until week 5, which is against Miami. Not that that's where I would circle on my calendar, because I think it's still too, early in the season. But I think that you take into the fact that Jacoby Brissett was paid $8 million to play, not to specifically be a tutor. Robert Kraft, Jonathan Kraft, we're not going to pay a guy $8 million to be a tutor. Okay, and Brissett's knowledge of Alex Van Pelt's offense and being with the Cleveland Browns and working with him before also works in his favor. I think I have 3 games that I would circle. I think Tennessee in November. You're already in week 9. Mitchell, I look at the schedule, and I'm not saying that I see it playing out like this, but you get to week 9, this team could be 0-8. They could be 1-7. I mean, that is what the standings, could reflect at that time in the season. On the road, I think is a good spot for him. Tennessee I thought they did a better job in rebuilding, but I also think that that's a team that's a softer opponent. It's on the road. Okay. Well, now he's not in front of his home crowd fans. And I think that there is something to that, starting in an opposing team's environment rather than your own, when the expectations and the hopes and the pressure is so much on your shoulder. So I think that would be a good spot. I would say London in week 7, or the Jaguars, I would say, but I think because of the London factor, you have too much going on that week. International stage, the travel, your internal clock is all off. And then I also look at week 5 against Miami, although I still think that's too early, but I think that would be a division opponent. First 4 games in the book. Now you've had another month of your season to kind of assimilate yourself to everything. And then I think, like Phil Perry said, week 15 after the bye, when you're out of contention, you can get some on-the-job training in the final 4 weeks of the season, which isn't going to be any favors because you have the bye, you have Arizona. That's the week there, or Indianapolis, I guess, in week 13. So that's where I'm looking at, Mitchell, because I don't see a circumstance where he doesn't play. I just don't. I think the earlier bye would have given him a better opportunity to start, earlier, full week to prepare. You could have had a logical entry point for him if it was earlier in the season. Now with it being so late, I think that, people are going to start to talk about, playing May before that. If your Thursday night game was later in the year, that could have been another good week to start him following. You have a Thursday night game. That means you get 10 days typically until you have your next game. Well, 10 days, it's not 2 weeks. It's not the full bye week, but, it would give you a little extra time to prepare, take first team reps, and adjust. So I don't see a circumstance where he doesn't play. Do you think that, if you had to guess when he starts, as you looked at the schedule, where would you spot that?
I would have to say it's going to be one of 3 games. If I had to narrow it down, it'd be one of 3. I would say either the Titans in week 9, where it's a weak opponent, and then you can go ahead and you play another weak opponent the following week in the Chicago Bears. So you got that going for you. 2, the Indianapolis Colts. Again, weak opponent. Once you go ahead and you face them, you also have the bye week. Gives you a lot more time to work on those things that you can see wrong in the film from the previous game. Or week 15 for the Cardinals. Depending on what the season is looking like, you can say, hey, Drake, go out there, don't get killed, and just have fun. You have the Cardinals, Bills, Chargers, and Bills. Have at it, kid. Go have some fun. So I think that's, I think if I had to narrow down those to 3 games, I would choose those. Again, it's the Tennessee Titans in Week 9, the Colts in Week 13, and the Cardinals in Week 15. I would narrow it down to those 3 games.
Yeah, I think those are all, you can make the case for all of those. I agree. And I think the record is going to matter. I think being out of contention also takes a layer of pressure off of him. And it takes a little bit of a layer of pressure off of the offense as a whole, knowing that it's going to be different when he steps in that huddle for the first time. 978-454-4980, the Milltown Electrical Service text line. When we get back here from our final commercial break, I want to discuss both the Celtics and the Bruins here to wrap up this program on a Monday. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
What is it like for this team to have that mentality of whatever it takes and sort of fight the human nature that you referenced before last game too, of, playing a certain way based on what's in front of you?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you want to win, you got to do whatever it takes. And you got to be open-minded and have the humility to understand that's going to look different every night. Jalen only took 9 shots tonight, but he was, I thought, tremendous defensively. Like, he was locked in his communication. I could hear him. He had some crashes on offensive rebounds, and when he did get the ball, he made the right play. And I thought Tatum's ability to handle and then went to screening, which opened up things for D. White and Drew. Al being open. I thought Peyton, Sam, and Luke stepping up, the bench throughout the year. So at the end of the day, if you say you want to win, everybody wants to win until it's really time to win, because then you and do a bunch of you don't want to do. So the guys, credit to them, they consistently do that, and we just have to keep that up. Every game's going to be different. Every series is going to be different, regardless of who we play. Is going to be different sub-patterns, different matchups, different lineups. Just got to do it, and the guys did it, so credit to them.
That was Joe Mazzulla after the Game 5 win, gentleman sweep for the Boston Celtics as they now prepare for the Eastern Conference Finals starting tomorrow against the Indiana Pacers at the TD Garden. Mitchell, I think my feeling so far here on the Celtics is I think we've had a boring 2 first rounds of basketball as a fan. Okay, I say what you want, if it's better to be challenged or to be rested. And the Celtics have played 10 playoff games here now, and they are one of the more well-rested teams in the league as they've gotten, extended rest time after now both of these series to kind of, get guys right. And I think it's important for, players, especially like Al Horford, who went off the other night. And I know that Dennis messaged the program here and was bringing up, what Al Horford did the other night. 37 years old. He's about to turn 38. He had, what was it? It was like 22. I mean, he had 22 points, I think it was. 5 assists, 15 rebounds, 3 blocks. He finally, broke out of his slump from 3, where he went off for 6 of them. And I think it is, it really is a nice night for Al. And it was nice for them to be able to do that, in their own build, doing it, where people could really appreciate Al Horford, because I think sometimes he is overlooked. Mitchell, I don't know if I feel any differently about this team, though, than I did to start the playoffs. And that's not to say that they've been bad or anything like that. There have been, the questions around Jason Tatum and when will Porzingis be back? He's not going to be playing early in the series, but there is a now possible outlook that he'll return by the end of the series. I still have the same concerns, and I know that, it's good for this team to get rest. It's always good for teams to get, extra rest and be able to be prepared and ready to go. I just think with this team specifically, I think being challenged by better competition would have suited them better, because I think when they make it to the finals, and they will, okay, they're going to take care of the Pacers. I think it will be 5, maybe 6, because I think, although the Pacers aren't, the type of quality team you would see in the Eastern Conference Finals in most years, I think that their offensive firepower is going to keep them in games. I think they're the top scoring team in the NBA when it comes to points per game in the postseason here. They just took care of the Knicks, who once again puked on themselves in a Game 7 in their own building. I feel better about the group this year than I have in the past, Mitchell, because I do think they have better DNA. I do think they are more connected with each other. I don't think there are the egos in the room like a Marcus Smart, like a Grant Williams. I don't feel that with this team. So I do think it is a better group. I have more confidence in this rendition of the team. But, you know, you're watching that game the other night, and yeah, they win. And yeah, Jason Tatum was more efficient, and there were positives that come out of that. But, I mean, they broke it down. I forget if it was Charles Barkley or if it was Shaq. It might have been a combination of both of them, where they're talking about, they're showing you clips of the offense. And it's, once again, what we had seen in the past. It's all one guy, isolation, one-on-one basketball, while everyone else stands around with the thumbs up there, you know what. So and people have said, you know, well, that's just because they knew that they could coast and win these games and it wasn't tight and, you know, they're not throwing everything out there. They're not putting too much on film. Work on it. Why couldn't you just work on it? How are you feeling about the Celtics?
Yeah, I mean, so far you look what have been the teams that they played against? The Miami Heat, and who were they missing? Jimmy Butler and Terry Rozier. You know, Terry Rozier, no offense to him, but it's more so about missing Jimmy Butler, the star player, the guy who goes ahead and continually is a thorn in the side of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and the Boston Celtics. You win the series in 5 games without him being there. You know, okay. You can't control the opposing team's health. You can't control that. You win the game in 5 series, you move on. You go ahead, you play against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who Donovan Mitchell all of a sudden has a calf strain. I believe that's what it was, and he missed games because of it. Or, you know, maybe he's leaving.
Yeah, well, I think he is.
Yeah. So, you know, you have that issue over there as well. So you played against 2 teams where the best player wasn't in. Now you have a chance with the Indiana Pacers, you know, a team that you've scored a lot of points and beaten them. They've also scored a lot of points and beaten you as well. Right. They beat them in the play-in tournament this year. Yep. So you look at that, and now you have to, you know, this is the time. They're a healthy team. You're a healthy team. It's time to go ahead and show that, you know, you're a playoff caliber team. You know, if this team goes ahead and they go, let's say they beat the Pacers and then they go to the finals. I mean, people are saying the same thing about the Pacers too. They beat the Bucks with Damian Lillard, Giannis, and their third superstar there, Chris Middleton, being hurt, and then they play against the Knicks, where Dante DiVincenzo is the only healthy guy. OG Anunoby, he's hurt. Jalen Brunson, hurt. Josh Hart, hurt. Julius Randle, hurt. Mitchell Robinson, hurt. Bogdanovich, hurt. I mean, so many people were hurt in that series. So the Pacers are in the same boat as well. And if they go ahead and they get beaten by the Celtics, everyone's going to be saying the same thing. Oh, they only got that far because of injuries. They're the Atlanta Hawks from a few years ago when they went ahead and they only beat the Sixers, and I forget the other team that they beat. And it's because Ben Simmons, you know, he should have just dunked it. You know, that's going to be the narrative around that team.
Yeah, I mean, they should win this series, you know, rather easily, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult. I picked the Celtics in, I'll say 6, but I could see 5. Final thought here on the Bruins here, and we'll get to them more in the week. Bruins the other night, again, you know, not being able to close out a game. The Bruins lost this series for a lot of reasons. Obviously, the scoring, the power play was horrible. To me, they lost it more so because they have trouble finishing games. And the other night, that game 6, where you're giving up a goal in the final couple of minutes there, it's just sloppy play. And even the goal in the second, where they're just not able to clear the puck out, and, you know, they're able to pot one there. The Bruins just could not close games out. And you knew going into the third period with it being tied up, just by watching them, they're falling down. They're not able to skate. The offense, all of a sudden, the shots on net have been pretty equal. They fall off a cliff. And you got the exact Boston Bruins that most people thought. That's what it was. That's been the program here for Monday. We'll be back on Wednesday with another program. Appreciate everybody listening. Dennis for the text, for the call. And we'll talk to you on Wednesday. Good night, Merrimack Valley.